Fifth meeting of the Greenbelt Advisory Commission. Good to see everybody, and looking forward to our agenda. Let's start with roll call. So we do remain a Zoom only group. So when you're introducing yourself or doing roll call, please just mention where you're attending from as well. So let's see, I can start. Commissioner Riggs attending from my home in Ann Arbor. Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes, I'm here attending from my home in Traverse City.
Great, hello. Commissioner Boggs.
Yep, I'm present and attending from my home in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Schuler. Okay, not here. Councilperson Radina.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Great. Commissioner Armstrong.
Right here in Ann Arbor.
Hello, Commissioner Gordon. Excuse me, Commissioner Gordon.
I'm also in Ann Arbor, but that will change next month.
Okay, stay tuned. Commissioner Laramie.
Here attending from Ann Arbor.
Hi, and Commissioner Buzzard. Hopefully joining us.
He did just text back that his Zoom was updating and he's logging on now.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we do have a quorum and we'll look forward to seeing him shortly. So let's move on to the next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. And thank you very much for the, August 3rd, 2023. Oh, I'm sorry, skipping around here. It's been a long day. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as prepared?
I'll move to approve the agenda as prepared.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Armstrong. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Bloomer, great. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Now, approval of the minutes from August 3rd. Those were emailed in our packet the other day from Rosie. Thank you very much for forwarding those on. So why don't we take just a few minutes to take a look at those and see if we have any questions or comments. Does anyone want a little more time to look at the minutes from August?
They were pretty straightforward, I thought.
Great, then does someone want to make a motion to approve the August minute?
So moved.
Commissioner Bloomer, thank you. Second, Commissioner Armstrong. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is public commentary. So, is there anyone who is waiting on the phone?
We have no callers for public commentary at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, Juliet. We will check again later. Then that takes us to new business. We have a staff report, budget review, and a Buy Protect Sell proposal presentation. So turning it over to you, Rosie.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff that has been happening. So starting with just some events featuring the Greenbelt. On September 22nd was the Mayor's Green Fair, which I hadn't personally been to in since grad school, and it was a blast and very well attended. Our Greenbelt table constantly had somebody there, engaging with the map or the popcorn, or with myself. And thank you again, Roseanne, for the donation of that popcorn from your farm. People loved it. We had really good questions about the Greenbelt. Remy came over and helped too, and had a long conversation with somebody. But the general feedback about it was, this is still great. People showed up who had voted it in 20 years ago, and they were like, this is looking amazing. I'm so happy. And when I got to mention Buy, Protect, Sell, everybody thought that was a great direction too. So really nice to hear that positive feedback. And then also in these photos, I just wanted to highlight some of our intra and interagency colleagues that the Greenbelt couldn't work without, and we were sort of stationed next to them. So on the left there is Gabby, one of our conservation crew members within NAP. If you recall, the Greenbelt physically moved in with NAP last year, so we share an office, so they are our colleagues. They always have great tables full of nature stuff. And on the right there is Legacy Land Conservancy, one of our very frequent nonprofit partners. Good times. I had the privilege of going to the Land Trust Alliance rally this year in September, which is the national conference for land acquisition in the conservation world. They also have some stewardship stuff, but it's highly acquisition focused. So thank you, Remy, for that. I hadn't been since I started in this field. Really cool to go again after working in it for a while. So got some interesting things out of there, primarily always how to make easements better. So there could be some, just kind of administrative revisions to easements, or possibly things we can discuss, but some really good ideas just about how to make them more inclusive and more resilient with climate change and cultural needs was interesting. So the photos here, I took very bad photos because they were lectures, So the left there was a skit-based lecture, I guess, at the end of the conference that was scenarios of bad easements done at the present and what happens 40 years from that point. And then they did another scenario as if they had done it well, and then what happens to that easement 40 years from there. So it's very cute. And then just a slideshow. The All Together Now Perpetuity was buttons that what's his name? The leading lawyer in this field was handing out. Remy, what's his name?
Steve Small.
Steve Smalls. Small, yes, thank you. I never saw him, but I picked up 5 buttons. And then that's Legacy attended too, so we got together and took some photos. So really valuable thing to go to. Appreciate it. And not really professionally related, but I got to go around Oregon around that too, because the conference was in Oregon. So went and visited some other beautiful conserved places. Those are my travel photos. Okay. So moving on to budget. This budget hasn't changed much from August. There is one additional property accounted for in the GAC pipeline of potential projects that we will review in closed session. But these 4 projects listed here are the same, so I will give you some updates on their status. Some of them are non-updates. CARES, kind of a non-update, no updates there. The township is still working on it. The Larson project in Webster the township has submitted all of their materials to us for review. Our attorney has reviewed all of those and approved and made changes as such, and it is now under federal review. So the township's just waiting on that. Our Divine property, the sales contract was finally finalized, so we can move forward with due diligence. Kind of took a while. Amazing Pop with Legacy, they have submitted all of their materials for that. And just a reminder of what those are: appraisal, phase 1 environmental site assessment, survey, conservation easement deed, participation agreement. And ideally the baseline, but they have a little more time to get that in. So they submitted all of that, and that is under review by our lawyer now. He's got 1 month left to review that. Any questions on the budget or status of projects?
Rosie, I don't have a question about that, but I just wonder if we could just pause and say hello to our newest commissioner.
Oh, great.
Commissioner Buzzard, it looks like he has joined us.
Hey, Julius. Welcome.
Hi, welcome to the commission.
Hey, Julius, I love what you do for a living, and welcome to the commission.
Thank you, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. As you know, my name is Julius. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the executive director at Growing Hope, an urban farm nonprofit in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And I've been getting to know the Greenbelt Advisory team a little bit over the past, I don't know, couple of months. I'm excited to be here in the virtual room with you all.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the commission.
We're happy to have you. Thanks for being here.
Rosie, thanks for letting me interrupt your staff report.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful you did. I can't see all of you when I'm presenting, so thank you.
Are there any questions about the budget from any of the commissioners? Or about the Oregon trip? That looked beautiful.
I know, right? Okay. We'll move on then if you're ready. Okay. On to Buy, Protect, Sell. All right. So just throwing this up here as a reminder of the goal of our Buy, Protect, Sell initiative here. But so we had released the RFP for the Noller property in July. And the deadline for those proposals was September 11th. We received 6 applications, some for each side of the property, so enough to choose from there. What else did I want to say about this? We've also been notified of other interest in it, but just couldn't apply for various reasons. So we're glad that people are interested in it. I've also been getting emails from people being like, is this still open? I just heard about it. So, maybe next time. So we're going to review these in a way right now that are sort of one directional. So I sent out sort of a 2-pager summary on each property, but recognizing there might not have been time to read those. And that it's usually helpful to receive information about something more than one time anyway. We're just going to kind of give an overview of these again, kind of big picture, or talk about the main elements of the 6 proposals. This also allows us to get some of this information out into the public domain, which I think is a nice thing. So there will be some repetition from those summaries. Feel free to read along in your summaries. We will also talk about next steps on the next slide. So I'm saying this will be one direction I'm going to tell you about stuff. There will be an opportunity for full discussion in November, and I'll detail that more in a little bit. So this will be, as I'm talking about these, there will be a time at the end for questions for Remy and I about anything that we said today, or if something is confusing, or if you have a question about the process, we'll have time for that. but questions for the applicants or further questions about the real meat of the proposals we'll save for later, and I'll give more direction on that. So, as we're reviewing these 6 proposals, things to keep in mind, or to know about them ahead of time. So remember the values of the scoring criteria that we developed together. So to go over those briefly, we valued greater farm experience. You got more points the more experience you had, and management, was considered better than operation and training, but all of those were taken into account. We valued the similarities between their experience and what they're proposing to do with the property. And that was in terms of like what they're growing, what size farm they've worked with. A big one was alignment with Greenbelt and A20 goals. So that can be many things, but sustainability oriented. And our last category was overall comprehensive success. So thinking about how all of the elements fit together for the total success of the project. And that can also include other elements from the proposal, like finances, and other things we don't talk about directly. When thinking about these, I'll identify which side they applied to, but we're not going to rank them separate or talk about them separately. It's not like we're going to say only these people are eligible for the 20, only these people are eligible for the 36. Think about them together. All of them are from our review, from staff review of these, we are saying that all of these are eligible based on the eligibility criteria first. So they have enough experience, and they've self-identified that they meet the income requirements as well. We are also saying that they are eligible or compatible with the easement, including the 50% agriculture spatial requirement that we're embedding into this easement. And we have not done a zoning check. So some of these proposals are not pure agriculture, and you will see that all of them have a major focus on agriculture, and I want that to be clear. The primary use of all of these proposals is agriculture. Some of them have a additional primary use on top of that. So some of those get a little complicated with the buildings and sort of community uses that they're interested in, and would probably require a check with zoning. In my own reading of the Northfield Township zoning ordinance, several of these would be allowed under a special use permit. But whomever we select, whoever gets recommended as the selected proposals, we will check with the zoning staff at Northfield, or we will have the applicants kind of run their idea by the zoning staff. But that is for later. We have not done that at this time. Okay. So that's what to consider when we're going through these. I'm going to jump for a minute to next steps, and I will repeat these at the end of this presentation. So today, again, listen, take notes, ask us clarifying questions about what we said. After this, I know we've gone back and forth a lot on what your role will be in detail. So this is currently what we have. So after this, since there are only 6 to read, we will send you the full proposals to read, to review as you can. By end of day, October 16th, is I am asking you to submit to Remy and I clarifying questions, if you have them, for the applicants about their proposals. If you think you need more information to properly assess the proposals. And so that comes to how you will assess them. Essentially, you will be ranking them. I think we talked about scoring before, so there will be some element of that you get to do. And that I will talk in more detail at the end of this presentation. But you will be ranking the proposals, giving your opinion numerically of those to us. And then at the November meeting will be the chance to really discuss. We want this month to be thoughtful, analytical, and sort of a time to collect all of our thoughts. And we'll review everyone's thoughts in November and sort of do an active synthesizing of the scoring of everyone's thoughts into one scoring and recommendation in November. Definitely wanted a time for active discussion. So that will be November, not today. Okay.
Does anyone have any clarifying questions on this process?
Can you just remind us of the date by which you said you'd want clarifying questions? Did you say October 16th?
Yes. And I will send out the schedule again in an email as well.
Yes, I do have a question about the timing and the process following any receipt of clarifying questions that you get from anyone on the commission. How is that going to work? When would you be asking for a response by from the applicants and getting that information back to us?
I'm not super tied to these dates here, but I've had communications with all of the applicants at this point, and they respond readily. So I'm hoping they will respond readily. But I would I don't know, give them to I'm realizing maybe there's not a lot of distance in between there. So maybe I'll move that October 16th up a little bit and give them, I don't know, a week to respond. And then I will email all of the questions and responses to you guys, I guess, in a document.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, realistically, we're looking at if your questions are submitted by the end of the 16th, Rosie will be able to get them out the next day to all the applicants, and then, easily get them a message to them that they should submit clarifying answers by early Friday on the 20th, so that we may send that out Friday afternoon for you to review over the weekend. But I'd say the date we might change more is the ranking. Push that a little so that you have more time to review any clarifying answers. Rosie and I can also let you all know if no clarifying questions about any proposals come through, or if no answers are coming through, and give you real-time updates without flooding your inbox.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Okay.
This is exciting. Look
I know.
Look how far we've come.
I know. I didn't even put the timeline on here because in this presentation, because we reached the end of the timeline that we had a timeline for. So we did it. We did something. So, okay, here are the 6 proposals. These are also harsh, are they? Wait, I think these are in order of my initial scoring as well. If that's not true, I'll let you know. Okay, so the first one, I'm trying, if the people had a business name, I am referring to them as their business name and not their individual name. Just, I don't know, to protect people. I'm not really sure. But so Rain Dance Farm is an existing farm that sells at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. They lease land currently and are looking to own land. So the founder and chief operator of Rain Dance Farm has been managing that farm for 5 years on about 8 acres. She had a year of operation before that and has undergone a lot of different trainings with MSU and just a little less formal education as well. So the plan here is to basically move all growing operations from the leased land over to the Noller Road parcel. They will start with 2 acres of annual flowers and crops to get the kind of money rolling, and plant the rest in perennial flowers and other vegetable crops based on the soil and topography and hydrology of the site. They already use and will continue to use organic, no-till growing techniques, as well as insect exclusion and tarping, which reduces the need further for different application of pesticides and herbicides. They will continue selling through the Ann Arbor's Farmers Market, Argus Farm, and On-Farm CSA, which is the primary way they make money right now. And then they'll add additional wholesale onto that, since they'll be growing more. And by year 3, I put this on here, they want to increase their revenue by 15% from peak year revenue, which you can see on that chart in the top right corner is their past revenue on their current farm. So it's sort of stabilizing now, and they're ready to increase modestly from there. And I threw on the SWOT analysis that they produced for this as well. Not that that's very easy to read, but yeah, you can kind of poke through it. So this is the way I sort of think about this one is this is very much the kind that we heard the need from when we started this, like what surveys kind of told us what the demographic was that might be looking for this opportunity. People who have leased for a long time in the area and now want to, and have had trouble accessing the ownership market, and this is their opportunity. That's what that one is. And they are going for the south side, the 34 acres. Sorry, I meant to go over that over here. I wanted to review just what we're looking at here when we're talking about the north and south side. So the south parcel is the larger one with the existing barn, silos, and storage shed on it with driveway access, and the forest. And the north parcel is pretty much all ag. That's the one we planted in the cover crop this year. It's got a 3.5 acre building envelope. The fields, the tillable area between the 2 parcels are about the same. So north 20, south 34. So this proposal was for the south 34. So they have plans for the buildings as well to restore them, store stuff in them. Next one, Feral Flora. This is also for the south 34 acres. These two in my initial scoring were kind of neck and neck in points here. So Feral Flora is an existing native plant growing business for native plants and native seed growing business for landscaping primarily. They focus on local genotypes. So the owner of Feral Flora has 5 years of farm type management. So what I'm saying here is that I said we assess these all for eligibility. Growing native plants is an agricultural use. It is a growing plants for the human benefit, for human consumption, one way or another. So, so his proposal is all matching his experience of growing native plants and native seeds. that operation currently is on 8 acres of leased land again. He's had some other experience as well in some other landscape business. So the plan there is to similarly kind of move the business over. So grow native plants and seed for harvesting. So that will involve restoring some of the traditionally ag area, conventional ag area, into plots that produce native seed naturally. There will also be an intense plot, like a sort of more conventional agriculture type plot of 1 or 2 acres to grow native plants quickly and efficiently, and again, sort of jumpstart the finances of the site. They plan to sell wholesale to landscape companies and other seed suppliers that they already have relationships with and are successful with. They will also sell to, they're not interested in selling their own retail, so they'll also sell to established local seed sellers like Green Things for them to sell retail. Their sustainability practices on the site include no tilling or other soil disturbance, bad for native plant growth, minimal herbicide treatment. He mentions on those 2 acres of intense plants, there would be more sort of, management, maybe herbicide application there, but not on the rest of it. He would expand the woods and the riparian buffer. The riparian area is the border between the 2 properties. So it's a nice, healthy thing to do. Proposal number 3. This is the agricultural therapy farm. So the guy running this has the most agricultural experience of anybody who applied. 7 years farm management, 4 years farm operations on various sizes of farms. So this is the one where I was mentioning, like, major component of this is agriculture. There's a secondary major component, and that's the therapy element for people with special needs, using farming and time with animals to be part of that. So the plan, I mentioned this in the summaries. The main plan is the farm. The plan is for this to be a farm that makes money by itself as a farm. And then he will develop a farm school where people with special needs can receive specialized therapies surrounding agriculture, animals, and open space. These will not have clinical offices. It will be more, because that's not cool with zoning or the easement, so because that's too much of a commercialized non-ag use. But therapists can essentially join their clients at this farm and work together in the farming area, or they can kind of prescribe this as a place to go and receive therapy. So they will sell the farm aspect. They will sell goats, maple syrup, honey, all of these other things to local markets. Rob has experience growing all of those things. He currently operates someone else's farm that's like a big farmstead. He's done a lot of educational development as well, and curriculum writing, and a lot of livestock stuff. Some sustainability things that will go on the farm were simply some agroforestry, so probably maybe rotating the livestock in the forest. A lot of people talk about growing mushrooms in the forest, and rainwater collection. And this sort of farm school, this development aspect of it, will be sort of an educational building with a kitchen and other sort of gathering type spaces. Okay. This was the proposal for, so all of those had proposed for the 34 acres. This one applied for the entire property, or just 34 if the entire one wasn't available. And they were the only ones to send in a nice map. I love maps, sucker for maps. So that's what you get to look at. So this is a couple that specializes in medicinal plants. Together, they have 3 years of farm management, sort of complementary styles of farm management, and 6 years of farm operations, and many years of other various business management, including heavy financial work. They currently just farm 2 acres of medicinal plants and subsistence food, which is the bulk of their proposal, growing medicinal plants and subsistence food. So their plan is to produce large scale medicinal plants for market sale, permaculture gardens, and create a special medicinal plant nursery specializing in at-risk plants. And this is one of the folks that would want to build their house out here, and grow their own food for that as well. They make a good mention of talking about native medicinal plants as well as non-native medicinal plants, and implementing measures to make sure that the non-natives don't escape. They would sell via CSA and UPIC days on the designated areas there. And then they would also manufacture herbal products through an FDA certified laboratory that they already use and already produce products within. They would also have this sort of educational building component where they might have, sort of lectures on medicinal plants, community workshops, education on medicinal plants, etc. And they very community focused, community oriented. They make a pitch for that in their proposal. And for sustainable methods, they call their farming regenerative farming, and they would intend to seek organic and biodynamic certifications from is that USDA that does those? Whoever certifies those things. Sorry, yeah, my agricultural limit, I can hear you laughing, like ends there, like in terms of actual operations. Okay, now the 2 that have applied for the north side, 20 acres. So this is a nonprofit applying, the Refugee Gardens Initiative. So this exists as a half-acre farm currently at Mathi, I believe, that was established in 2022. And brings in a community of refugee families and allows them to grow culturally appropriate foods and bring together that refugee community and let them talk about food within their own context. And I think the goal is also to provide, or at least where they want to expand, is to provide other sorts of services, like employment services and therapy services, and generally empower them to have a healthy life here. So yeah, the plan is to move that whole project over to the Noller farm and create a farm offering culturally appropriate foods, employment opportunities, etc. They would plant 2 acres
Rosie,
the first year. Yeah.
Sorry, I think you skipped over the part where it exists currently elsewhere.
No, I said a half acre at Mathi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll return to that a little bit about the nonprofit. But yeah, it exists. It's award-winning. There's a lot to say about it. It is an award-winning farm. It has been recognized by the Biden administration. Found an article about that. So pretty cool. They're pretty successful in getting grants for that project so far, even though it's only been a year. they're able to support it financially for another 3 years with the grants that they've received. The plan for this property would be to plant 2 acres the first year and reseed the rest into cover crop as they grow and establish their financial base and volunteer base, and other community partnerships. And they will add livestock later. They will also have, these other community resources of nature trails, gardens, food forests that people can attend to, and again, some sort of, eventually later in the plan, some sort of gathering space for people. There's a lot in this proposal about how to make it financially stable and sustainable and how to build that up. What's complex about this proposal is that it's a non-profit. So the way that we created this buy, protect, sell eligibility, the scoring, the way we thought about it, we placed a lot of focus on the proposed ownership, the proposed owners of the site, and their financial stake, thus in the site. And this is a little different. It's a newish nonprofit. While the one member who wrote this, the founder of this, has in my evaluation enough agricultural experience to be eligible for this. She doesn't have like years of farm operation or management experience, but she has the refugee management experience and certifications. And nonprofits require, participation of a lot of people. So because there's only one member of this nonprofit, we're just kind of, so far we're just scoring it and evaluating the experience based on her experience. So I think it's somewhere to grow in the future. This obviously has a lot of social benefits, I think. We just kind of weren't quite set up for a nonprofit style ownership, or at least not a budding one. Okay, last one, application for the 20 acres. This fellow has many years of greenhouse construction and operation and maintenance experience, including soil testing and sort of water system optimization, a lot of technological and agroengineering type experience here, and a lot of other non-ag business management skills. So his plan is to continue restoring soil health, cares very much about that, raise some livestock on much of the property, and then focus all of the crop growing into as many greenhouses as possible, up to the 2% impervious surface limit. He will also install solar panels as available as he can, in accordance with the easement. Those greenhouses, of course, would have to be in the building envelope, by the way, and I do believe I've communicated that. Greenhouses are permanent structures, and thus have to go in the building envelope. Tunnels, high tunnels, can be anywhere on the easement. And we say right now that they don't count towards impervious surface limits, because they can be, the covering can be removed and water can percolate into the soil. And those just sit on top of the soil. They don't have permanent footings. But so these are, sorry, but we're talking about full greenhouses here. So, yeah, so he would require some agricultural consultants here, but his plan, grow livestock, grow plants in his greenhouses that he knows how to operate very well. And that was them. That was all 6. really cool stuff. It took longer than I expected to read them, internalize them, go through the scoring with them consistently. It took a few days. Part of me is glad we only got 6, though more are always welcome. So, any questions about anything I have said about those 6? Anything that was confusing about anything there? D.
Yeah, so can you explain to me subsistence farming? Is that just for
growing,
what you need to live on, or?
Yep, precisely.
Okay, thanks. Not much of a farmer here.
Me neither. I know that term from some high school class a long time ago. Is where I learned that. Yeah, like world geography or something, you know.
Thanks.
Jason has
Jason?
his hand raised.
I have 2 questions, both just sort of general about the reporting, and maybe this will show up in the specifics as opposed to the recap that we have here, or the but I noticed a great variety to the numbers anticipated in each of the proposals in terms of income, mortgage management, et cetera, labor, et cetera. And I don't have any expertise in this. I know there are several on our council here who do have farming expertise, but what is our responsibility in order to validate, or I think back from the real estate perspective, it's great when someone makes me an offer that sounds great, but I always want to trust but validate. So what is our responsibility or your responsibility to validate that the numbers, either from historical use, historical experience from these folks, or their projections of what their income, what their costs are going to be, how realistic those things are? Is that something that is built into our process or not? So that's one question I have, and that's a general question, not specific for any of the individuals, which is why I think now is the right time to ask it. The second one is in terms of what they choose to grow, and this is going to sound funny, but we do live in Michigan, where it is legal to grow marijuana, and so when I hear things like greenhouse, this or that, I wonder, is there anything that we are restricted about, or that have to be reported as part of our sale process when it comes to the growth of something that is legal statewide but not nationally?
So. Remy, you got some?
You can go first. I got answers to both. I think.
I'm gonna try the second one. I'd be interested to see if we have different ideas. So the proposals, most of them were very thorough, very good proposals, and most of them have like all of the plants that they want to grow. And to be honest, I didn't read the whole thing, but I did not see marijuana on there. So that's not exactly your question, but it doesn't sound like that is what any of these people are proposing. When they talk about building greenhouses, they also say we'll consult ones that aren't able to say, I want to grow this here. They'll say, I'll consult with some other agricultural specialists to determine what would be best to grow in these soils, etc. But theoretically, this property isn't federally funded, so there's no oversight in that regard. And that's about where my idea stops, is that it's legal here, so why would we really stop it? Though I'm not sure we'd prioritize it either.
Yeah, I'll clarify why I asked the question, because I don't personally care at all. But
Mhm.
I understand that that part of what's built into this is that we want whatever the operation is that gets voted on or gets accepted and purchased or sold to, does the purchasing. We want them to be successful, and that there is some element or some possibility that we would need to repurchase a failed venture in order to buy back and resell again. And there are some challenges with that when it comes to the growth of marijuana from the real estate perspective. And so that's the only reason I care. Was just thinking of it longer term. The hope is that whoever buys this is extremely successful with whatever venture they choose. But that's why I brought it up.
Yep. So an answer that might touch on the first question and the second question at the same time, but not answer both fully, is again, our primary objective at the City of Ann Arbor Greenbelt program is to protect land. And we are going through a process right now for a parcel that we stepped in as an interim title holder and title transfer facilitator for the purpose of protecting land. We are taking these proposals at face value. We are not going to do a great deal of vetting outside of the eligibility requirements. When you all make a recommendation, the City Council ratifies and approves a purchaser. At that time, we will verify those eligibility requirements around income caps. But beyond that, there won't be verification or teeth outside of the conservation easement to the enforcement around what actually happens then thereforward on the property. So none of these properties have suggested growing marijuana, for instance. So we don't have any concerns around selection of a purchaser based on that. Then the reverse of us repurchasing a property that ends up growing marijuana in the future. And restrictions or concerns with the city purchasing a property that's an operation for growing marijuana. Our tool for repurchasing a property is an option. We do not and are not obligated to exercise that option. So if we find ourselves in that conundrum, we just don't exercise it, and we still, at the end of the day, have protected 54 acres of land in the Greenbelt, which was our fundamental task. So if somebody, a less than ideal partner in the Greenbelt community who does come into ownership of this and puts us in that position, we just don't exercise our option. So going back, well, let's see, Jason, your two questions were,
how do we validate the income statements and that they've proposed? Yeah. Or
we don't this time. If you all feel that's a flaw in our process, we adapt for future RFPs and efforts. If we need to establish a secondary advisory committee to GAC that brings that expertise to the table to look into the detailed financial plannings, projections of these applicants, we can do that. We thought for our very first RFP, our very first process, we would see what collectively as a body we were able to bring in terms of expertise and eyes and opinions, and utilizing our scoring criteria and ranking and weights to come to a solid recommendation on a purchaser or two. But beyond that, we have always said this process is absolutely iterative, can be adjusted property by property, RFP by RFP for all sorts of different intended improvements. And that can be one of them. But this time, I don't think we're going to have a solid advisor on the timeline we need to get this done by to look into the detailed financial offerings that these groups have given us, that these applicants have given us.
I do think there is some. Oh, go ahead, Roseanne.
I just wondered why we didn't consider having these people pre-qualified for financing. And I think that would have supported two factors. One, you'd have a lending agency look at their historical earnings and compare that to their projection. And number two, we would know going forward if one of these entities was awarded that in fact they could obtain financing. Because as I recall, we were going to give them a year to close. And if we gave them that year and they could not qualify for financing, we would have lost that year. So can you just address that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
For the, oh, do you want to do it?
No, go ahead.
For the financing, some of that was about trying to be equitable in some way, to ask for them to do a hard credit pull in a loan situation where there's a fairly good chance, or there is a high chance that a lot of them won't get this property, won't receive this opportunity, seemed unfair. We do ask them on the application to talk about where they will get their financing. So one person has it in cash, one person says they have a 20% down payment. The nonprofit talks about grants. There's sort of a plethora there. There is a requirement that they check, that they understand that they will be required to provide proof of ability to purchase within a month of, or within a short amount of time of being selected for this. So if we, make these recommendations in November, go to council, they have 1 month, it's January, to prove that they have the financial ability to purchase it. And then we haven't lost a year, we've lost a month or two.
What does that mean exactly that they have? What evidence do they provide to you in that month?
If it's a loan, we're thinking the pre-approval letter.
Okay.
Yep. If it's crowdsource funding, that they have the crowdsource funding page to show us that they've raised the money to purchase it outright, or if it's a personal loan, some evidence of a contract of a private mortgage for personal lending. Yeah, it could take a number of forms. I think that was the tricky balance we were trying to strike, was how much to ask of an applicant when we thought the pool could be as many as 20 people with only 2 purchasing opportunities. How rigorous to be in terms of furnishing ahead of time in the application that proof, as opposed to post-selection. And we have post-selection vetting in terms of income and financial readiness to purchase that takes place in a sort of, it's a moment of you've been selected, but you're not necessarily under contract to purchase it yet. We are vetting the statements that you've made in your application to be true and accurate. So there is a post-selection, moment of review before actually entering into the purchase agreement with the city council approved buyers. So again, open. I think that's another really illustrative question around. Rosie and I entered into this process with what we know well, which is how long it takes generally the city system and then these legal agreements to come together, coalesce for a closing. And we looked at the spring growing season coming up as our benchmark for when we wanted the out sale to take place. And we backtracked from there and developed this timeline that led us to this moment. And adding in a great deal of process for each applicant felt like it was going to prolong this and push us into this really tight spot of trying to get the out sale done before this coming growing season. I think maybe we mentioned a year to sell, but our goal right now is to have these buyers approved by city council by the end of the calendar year and be under contract with them within the first quarter of the of 2024 calendar year, and then hopefully a sale by March or April, so that they have access to the property for this coming growing season. So that was a fairly aggressive timeline, and that I suppose kudos to Rosie, because I was not being aggressive, and I like that aggressive backtrack and then layout. But we could have that thrown off by selected buyers who do not end up meeting our vetting standards once we look at income caps and eligibility requirements. But that's a vulnerability of this process.
At the very minimum, very minimum, you can see a difference in the amount of income knowledge or market knowledge from these different proposals, and can kind of at least see how much time each applicant has spent thinking about it. And then I would say that, like Remy said, we had considered, and we can consider it next time, some sort of external review committee or consultant, for some of these. But I do think that together, all of you have some experience in examining elements of this. I mean, Jason, you know about mortgages and property prices. Roseanne, you manage a farm. Travis, you work with money all the time. There's some experience here that together I think we can leverage to make a good selection together.
But I do want to be really forthright about this, Roseanne, and for everyone. What I was saying is that, Roseanne, your question was illustrative of something we've heard from other questions that have been asked about the process. And Rosie and I, as non-farmers, as easement acquisition practitioners, just didn't fully realize may have not been the right timeline, or maybe too aggressive. And what I mean by that specifically is I have heard that there are applications that weren't submitted because a early July launch and a relatively close to mid-September closing, that 2.5-month window was insufficient for a lot of people in the growing season who were under so much pressure to do their typical work, let alone make a huge business decision like choosing and selecting a property that they've long been waiting for. So in my mind, not being in that position, I figured 2.5 months was ample. That I think we originally talked, should we have it open for 6 weeks? And we ended up at 10. So as much as I like to think we were building in this cushion or this really generous window for applications, another question was, or more feedback was posed that showed, this will need to be iterative, and we will need to revise how we run these types of things, because as much as we thought we had a really well thought out timeline, it just may have actually prevented a couple of applications from coming in. And same with, establishing a review committee or establishing some standards like more in-depth pre-financial approval.
I just wanted to underscore that this is a first time. It's a pilot in a way, and we're learning a lot from it. I would suggest that sometime in 2024, we plan on one of our agendas to spend a little time talking about the lessons learned and things to consider changing for the next opportunity. I know that we've been collecting that and realizing the things along the way, but that would be, I think, a useful conversation for us. Are there other questions from Rosie's presentation about these 6 proposals?
And I'd be remiss if I only highlighted the things we did wrong.
Yeah, I was about to
We
go
did a
there.
few things right, which was Rosie and I couldn't really go through the community without hearing people say like, "Oh, I already know about it. I'm really excited about it. That's so cool that you're working on that. That's been needed for a long time." We did get 6 applicants for this property, and that is really phenomenal. And it shows a diverse set of needs in the community seeking land, because land is such a unifier, whether it be, therapy, culturally appropriate food growing, or, small enterprise for local food production that serves Ann Arbor markets. There's just a lot that happens on land, and lots of people are seeking that affordable land because it's so rare. So I think we did a great job with the media push. I think the idea is well received and welcomed by the community, and that it would continue to be valued if we keep this model going. But by no means are we at a unassailable model that can't be improved upon.
So just, Dee, can you put your hand down, please? And then it looks like Kate has a comment or a question.
Yeah, just a quick question. And to start to follow up on what you said, Remy, I really love that all of these proposals are so different. I think that's really exciting, and like you said, speaks to the variable needs in the community. And it's just it was very cool to see, not very similar proposals. Question about the nonprofit proposal. It sounds like, obviously, moving forward in this process, we might want to tweak our criteria a little if we know that this is a need that might be out there in the community. But for this iteration, we are considering the nonprofit, correct, as a viable option, even though it might be a little bit more complicated than what we were expecting.
Yes, it is eligible. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great, thanks.
Clarification. Well, if there aren't any other questions or comments for Rosie, then sounds like next step is we're going to receive the full proposals.
Yes.
From staff.
Yes, I'm going to go over those again. Next step. So, yes, you will receive the full proposals, email questions, and then what I wanted to spend more time on was, sorry, Remy, I guess I didn't save our language change. Hold on. We'll make this official. Hold on. In the manner of the scoring. Ha 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 ha. 1 second. Okay. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, it took me a while to score these proposals. We had talked some about building sort of qualitative discretion into the scoring, and boy did we do that. So it took a little while, even with only 6 applications. So we want your scoring of these, but I'm proposing a couple different options for you to do that. So if you would like to go through the scoring as is and would like to work on those or score the proposals according to the scoring criteria, feel free to do that. You may also, instead, or both, whatever helps you make the best decision, just rank the proposals in the manner of the scoring, thinking about what we valued in the scoring, and rank the proposals like from 1 to 6 of what you think is best to least. And I would also encourage you, if you want to discuss those with staff, or work on those together, ranking, scoring, whatever works for you, to set up a meeting with us in the next couple weeks, and we can do those together. We want you to make sure that you have all of the information and way of thinking about this that you think you might need.
So to recap, you have 3 ways to evaluate the proposals that have been submitted. One, score them, which is a very intensive process that took Rosie many days. So that would be the biggest ask of this commission.
Took 2 days. It took a couple hours, and then I had to think about it again, and it took a few hours the next day. That's how that works.
So you can dedicate a retreat day to yourself for Greenbelt BPS scoring, or rely on the work that Rosie did. The scores are in the proposal summaries that Rosie came up with. I put my mind to scoring for about a half hour and realized how intensive a process it was that Rosie had gone through. So I'm relying heavily on her assessment, and to do so, keeping all those proposals in mind. So some of you, namely one that's not here, Sheila Schuler, will very likely score them all using the scoring system, and that's great. Kudos to Sheila. Others, you may choose to look at the scoring, understand what the weights and the criteria were, and then look at Rosie's scores that she developed, read through the summaries, and then develop your ranking just based on that without having gone through the detailed scoring exercise. Others, you may read through the proposals and know right away, you're already familiar with the criteria we've been talking about for so long, and you had read through the summaries, and you can just rank as you see fit. And then Rosie, there's more to say, I'd say, about how to think about these rankings in terms of zoning.
In terms of what?
Zoning. Would you like me to cover that?
Sure.
So I think some of you will read through the proposals, and you should know that Rosie has vetted all these proposals for compatibility with the city's conservation easement template. Everything that's described in these proposals can happen on a property protected with a conservation easement. Some of these, maybe, we're not entirely sure, may require some eyes from the local zoning administrator in Northfield Township. So, and I guess at the most extreme end, if it doesn't fall within the current ag zoning allowances, a special use permit may be required. What I would ask is that you review these proposals independent of any zoning considerations. And then we allow that to become a post-selection vetting exercise similar to financial readiness, proof of financial readiness. The 1 or 2 selected proposals are advanced to the Northfield Township zoning administrator for a conversation and confirmation that they would be compatible with zoning or eligible for a special use permit before the city closes on the sale.
Yes. Thanks for recapping that. I would also say evaluate them independently of which side they applied for. Think of, which I mentioned earlier too, think of all of them against each other.
Yes, I think while our application did indicate or allow folks to indicate, I'm interested in the 20 acres, the 34 acres, both or either. Ultimately, we want to hear from you what you feel the most compelling and successful proposals are likely to be. And from there, give those highest ranking proposals the opportunity to amend what they're considering purchasing. So if the top ranked is offered the 34 acres and that's what they wanted, great. If the second ranked wanted the 34 acres and didn't list interest in the 20, I think it would be in our interest to select the most competitive application to offer the 20 acres to at our discretion and see where we get with that process. Does that make sense? Okay.
Question? I have a question. Oh, shoot. I didn't quite understand that. So you're saying we just ranked them 1 through 5 and we don't pay any attention, not on the basis of what they applied for. And I realized I just repeated exactly what you said, which is hardly clarifying. But I thought I thought I heard you say something like, even if they didn't want that property?
Yeah, so ultimately, in our effort to permanently conserve land, it would be in our best interest to select proposals that have the highest likelihood of success. So we do not have to tax staff with the burden of exercising that option to repurchase the property and then run this whole process over again for this property because a business failed. So in the spirit of that it's better for staff capacity and outcomes of buy, protect, sell to select the applications that have the highest likelihood of success. If the top 2 ranking proposals were only interested in the 34-acre parcel, I would take the lesser ranking and say, are you interested, before we move on down the list, in the 20 acres that's available? We did select someone for the 34. You are not successful there, but we liked your proposal so much. We think you're going to be successful. Would you be interested in purchasing the 20?
Thank you. That's clear. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for summarizing this and going through all the scoring. And I, for one, am excited to see the full proposals and spend some time with them. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else from staff, then our next agenda item is next agenda items. So for our November meeting, do we have any suggestions for what needs to be on the agenda? And I will start with something that's already been mentioned, which is that we will be discussing our choices for these 6 proposals and making recommendations. So you don't want to miss that meeting. Everyone clear your calendar. I'm guessing that's going to take pretty much our whole meeting, but are there other things, do we expect any property discussions?
I couldn't tell you right now. I think if we did, I would want to postpone them to December in case this meeting's very long.
Okay, well then, there's nothing else. We're going to do a roll call to move into closed session. So, I'm going to need someone to move that we go into closed session. So, do I have a volunteer for that? Commissioner Gordon, do you want to? Yeah, thank you. And is there a support?
Support.
Support. Commissioner Boggs? All in favor? Aye or yes?
Yes, aye.
Oh, I have to do roll call. I'm sorry. Roll call. So Commissioner Bloomer?
Yes.
If in favor, say yes. Thank you. Commissioner Armstrong? Councilperson Radina? Was a yes. Okay. Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Commissioner Laramie?
Yes.
Commissioner Buzzard?
Yes.
And Commissioner Boggs?
Yes.
Great. And yes, Commissioner Riggs. Okay, we're now going to close session. Please see your email with that link from Rosie. And you can leave this one and we'll see you over at that one.
023-02 and approval of the contribution of funds not to exceed $50,000 from the Open Space and Parkland Preservation Village.
Thank you. Commissioner Buzzard, is there support for the motion? Commissioner
support.
Armstrong? Oh. And is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Good. Moving on then, the next thing on our agenda is public commentary. So we will now hold public comment via telephone only. And Juliet, is there anybody waiting to speak to the commission?
We have no callers at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Communications. I don't believe we have anything from communications. Are there any reports from commission members? Okay. And are there any reports from managers? Managers, who is that? Is that you, Remy?
It's me, and I don't have one.
Okay.
I vote no.
All right. Okay, then we are at adjournment then. So is there someone who wants to make a motion to
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. Is there support?
Support.
Commissioner Bloomer? Great. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Great. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the great
you.
work, and we'll look forward to getting the emails for the proposals.
Yeah, follow up. Thanks for the long meeting.
Thanks, you guys.